This following article deals with forensic. You might remember the drug wars in the Philippines, and apparently this forensic doctor in the Philippines is out to prove that a lot of the people she said died from other causes. She proved those doctors wrong. From the bones of victims, a doctor unearths a drug war's true toll. She's right there. It says Quezon City, Philippines, standing in a college classroom surrounded by 6 skeletons, mendacity, on picket tables. Raquel Fortun held up the damaged cranium of a man who was slain throughout President Rodrigo Duterte's drug conflict. She poked a finger by means of a gap in it. This looks like an entry, mentioned Dr. Fortun, who is one of solely 2 forensic pathologists in the Philippines. So an apparent gunshot wound to the head for this one. Since July 2021, Dr. Fortun, 60, has been quietly inspecting these bones at the behest of a Catholic priest, the Reverend Flaviano Villanueva, and the households of the victims. What Dr. Fortun found made headlines in the nation. Out of 46 stays that she had examined, there have been 7 instances by which the demise certificates had acknowledged that the trigger of demise was pure, although her investigations confirmed them clearly to be homicides. The findings disclosed at an information convention in April raised questions on whether or not medical authorities have been complicit in a cover-up. Dr. Fortun's discovery additionally means that the true extent of the drug conflict may very well be far larger than what the authorities have disclosed. Rights activists have lengthily argued that the quantity of individuals killed, as much as an estimated 30,000, that's 30,000 people, since 2016, is much larger than the official determined. The Philippine National Police places the quantity at over 6,200. Before Dr. Fortun, there had been no impartial inquiry into the drug conflict, together with its many casualties. The International Criminal Court mentioned final 12 months that it will open an investigation. However, the Duterte administration mentioned it will block investigations from getting into the nation. In response to Dr. Fortun's findings, the Philippine National Police mentioned it will conduct its personal investigation into falsified demise certificates, although any conviction is unlikely. Since the drug conflict started, only 3 law enforcement officials have been imprisoned for the homicide of a 17-year-old boy. In a nation, the justice system is weak. The place extrajudicial killings are frequent, and the place forensic pathology is sort of non-existent. Dr. Fortun has a form of movie star stand-in. Family members of murder victims both ring her up at the University of Philippines College of Medicine, the place she chairs the pathology division, or monitor her down on social media. She is skeptical of the police narrative that many suspects in the drug conflict have been killed as a result of their try to struggle again. She has been essential about the lack of a correct demise investigation system in the Philippines that enables the police to deal with the proof, the weaknesses, and our bodies of the victims killed in police shootouts. That's how you get away with murder, easily, she mentioned in an interview in her workplace. And here I am in my ivory tower saying, no, though, you're wrong. You have missed this. You have missed that. How do you think they feel about me? They hate me, she mentioned, chuckling. Dr. Fortun grew up in QUEZON City in a household of legal professionals and doctors. As a youngster, she liked disassembling gadgets, waiting to seek out what was unsuitable with a damaged doorknob or automobile half. She mentioned she gravitated toward pathology, seeing it as the backbone of medicine. Dr. Fortun graduated from medical faculty in the Philippines in 1987 and began her residency coaching in anatomic and medical pathology in 1989 at the University of Philippines College of Medicine. But it was a one-year coaching course in the King County Medical Examiner's Office in Seattle in 1994 that led her to concentrate on forensic pathology. Dr. Fortun left her 4-year-old daughter, Lisa, behind together with her in-laws. That was the most difficult thing ever, she mentioned. In a phone interview, Dr. Richard Haroff, the chief medical expert at King County and Dr. Fortun's former boss, mentioned he loved being her mentor as a result of she wasn't afraid of anything. She was just as good as any pathologist that I have ever trained over the years, he mentioned. She just basically absorbed everything. And decomposed bodies and skeletal remains were not a factor at all. She just did the work. Over the years, Dr. Haroff mentioned he always wondered how she managed not to get killed or, or assassinated. It's a query Dr. Fortun has given a lot of thought to herself. Am I at risk? Should I consider moving elsewhere? Dr. Fortun puzzled a lot. There's a certain effect on your psyche. You're not safe, knowing that in the Philippines, assassins can simply come near you, start shooting, and get away with it. Whatever the risk, Dr. Fortun makes no effort to mince her phrases. She is voluble on Twitter, the place she tweets below the account at Doc4Dead. In 2016, she angered Mr. Duterte's daughter, Sarah Duterte, after she questioned whether or not Ms. Duterte's announcement of being pregnant with triplets was half of a public relations marketing campaign for her father. Ms. Duterte, who is set to develop into the vice chairman on June 30, known as Dr. Fortun, a bitter melon, and urged her to turn off her Twitter. Dr. Fortun's work has taken her to Cyprus, The Hague, and East Timor. She would make more crash if she practiced medication overseas. I guess is yeah, they make more cash if she practiced medication overseas full time. However, mentioned she felt there was always this guilt that I am not in the Philippines where I am needed. Most mornings, Dr. Fortun arrives at her makeshift lab in the University of the Philippines College of Medicine that she unexpectedly put along with tables sourced from a junkyard. She works alone, sitting, piecing, and plunging the bones collectively. In the previous month, these mornings have been interrupted by a radiotherapy program to deal with early stage breast most cancers, after which she would head to the lab. When I'm there in the room with all of these skeletons, I feel that I am giving them what was denied to them before, she mentioned. They were not given a proper investigation, no proper examination, so I'm trying to see what was missed. Several issues have stood out to Dr. Fortun. The victims have been almost all males. The majority had head wounds. They usually have been the poorest of the poor. She held up a jawbone without enamel. They have probably never seen a dentist in their life, she mentioned. Dr. Fortun is working without cost. She cost Father Villanueva about $96 per physique to cow solely the prices of supplies, with increasingly our bodies that have to be exhumed. She mentioned she is on a treadmill. Dr. Fortun mentioned she hopes to get assist from the Worldwide Forensic Group. However, acknowledged it was unlikely even when Mr. Duterte leaves workplace. Ferdinand Marcos Jr., elected president in May, has indicated he wouldn't pursue the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court's case, and would solely enable investigators to enter the Philippines as vacationers. What troubles Dr. Fortun the most, she mentioned, are the unidentified. What happens to the unnamed, unclaimed bodies, she requested. Where are they? Dr. Fortun saves hair and fingernails to remind herself that these were all part of somebody. Halfway by means of the interview, she rummaged in a shelf behind her desk and brandished clear plastic bag of kneecaps she is retaining for attainable DNA evaluation. I love the patella, she cried. You never lose sight of the fact that you're dealing with a person, she mentioned, especially when you meet the relatives. In presenting his case to the households to have their family members' stays assessed, Father Villanueva, often called Flavi, mentioned he informed them, "We have bones that could speak. In Tagalog, we call it bones of truth," mentioned Father Villanueva, the founder of the A.J. Kalinga Foundation, a nonprofit that's serving to victims' kinfolk because the bones cannot lie. After ending her examination, Dr. Fortun explains her findings to the households. Father Villanueva mentioned he has seen many of the kinfolk embrace the urns with their family members' ashes wears listening to her. Father Villanueva mentioned he knew there was just one particular person he might flip to look at the bones. He had by no means doubted Dr. Fortun as far as her sense of justice is concerned. He mentioned and recalled her pleasure when he informed her about his plan. She's been demanding, craving, and on a minimum asking that we bring bodies to her, he mentioned. 5 years away from retiring, Dr. Fortun mentioned she sees this mission as an end result of her life's work. When Father Flavi started referring them, I felt the sense of satisfaction that, okay, I'm going to make the use of what I know, she mentioned. Finally, I wouldn't feel so useless. I shouldn't have those regrets anymore of staying. So that's an interesting article there. One of 2 pathologists in the Philippines, and she's doing this. She's not being paid to do this because many of these people who were killed, and I remember that going back to the early days, and there were a lot of Filipinos who supported this crazy stuff, extrajudicial killing. It's like, okay, everybody seems to be like they want to fight with the police, I mean, everybody, if you're using drugs or what have you, why would you want to fight with the police? So everybody who ends up being dead, yeah, they were trying to pull a gun, they were trying to do this, and that was the same old story. And there's, unfortunately, in the Philippines, you don't have the type of system, the type of overview like we have here in the United States, where you can really get serious and have serious investigation, and pull people in and send people to prison if necessary. It's just too many political connections over there that will prevent that from happening. So Duterte, even Marcos, who just became president, Marcos the son, was saying, well, if the International Criminal Court wants Duterte, I'm not going to let them have him. Well, you know what? The International Criminal Court is going to be around long after Duterte is dead, long after Marcos is dead. And if anything, they can go on and carry on a trial in absentia and find somebody guilty, just like with Putin in Russia, all the war crimes he's committing right now. Russia is a big country, sure. But the moment he steps foot out of Russia, if there's an indictment, they're going to hold him. That's the way it's going to work.